there, we're talking about terminating decimals today. Terminating, when I think of terminating, I think of Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, that the terminating just ends. So it's a decimal that will just have zeros at the end after all of the numbers. So this is also an introduction to one of my favorite vocabulary words, surly. So in our launch here, we're going to be talking about our surly friend in the next couple lessons. It says that a certain surly friend of yours likes 1 divided by 2 far better than 1 divided by 3. He says, at least you can clearly see the answer to 1 divided by 2. Show and explain with decimals what might make your certain friend surly about 1 divided by 3, but happy about 1 divided by 2. Okay, go ahead and give that one a shot. When you come back, I'll have my decision. Okay, so I've shown that 1/2 is equal to 5/10 as a decimal, and 1/3 is equal to 3/10 repeating as a decimal. I've shown my work right here. So I'm just going on to say that in 1 divided by 3, the 3's never end, so that would make that a repeating decimal, and 1 divided by 2 is a terminating decimal, because I could keep going and putting zeros here, but with the 1/3, I'd have to keep putting 3's. So the key concept for today is that a terminating decimal has a decimal expansion that ends in zeros. So the example that they're showing you here is 3/4. That 3 divided by 4 is equal to 75/100 because right here it cancels out to give us 0 at the end. There is no remainder left over. So we could add, they're showing you right here, that we could add a ton of zeros after the 75/100, but that just becomes pointless. So we remove the trailing zeros of a terminating decimal. So finally saying 3/4 is equivalent to 75/100. On your notes here is a list of common fractions and their decimal expansions. You should have these memorized. Okay, these are common decimal to fraction, fraction to decimal relationships that you should become familiar with. You already have probably a good chunk of them memorized, so it's not like I'm asking you to spend hours here. 1/2 you know is 5/10. 1/4 you know is 25/100. I think we've practiced 1/3 enough now to know that's 3/10 repeating. 1/5 is 2/10. 1/8. Now, you should really learn the 1/8 because they do come in handy. You have the 125/100. And then when you go to 2/8, if you add another 125 thousandths onto that, really you're going to get 1/4, so you end up getting 25/100. The 1/9, we talked about that one, that you have a 9 in the denominator, it's just the numerator repeating, and 1/10 is obviously just going to give you 1/10. So really the only new ones are probably the 1/6 and 1/8. So enough of me babbling about that. Number 1, I'm just going to go ahead and ask you guys to circle the fractions and decimals that can be written as a terminating decimal. So basically all of the decimals up there, except for the 84/100 with the ... are terminating decimals because they don't have the repeating line, except for the 1 and 72/100. 1/6, we already know looking up at our chart that 1/6 and 1/3 are both repeating decimals, and 1/8 is a terminating decimal. We're not sure about the 84/100 because we don't know if there is a pattern of 84/100 or if it really never ends. Either way, if it has ... at the end, it's not terminating, so that's why I'm not choosing that one. Go ahead and do number 2. You should have 1, 2, and 4. Again, this ... is telling us that it keeps going, like Energizer Bunny, keeps going. Number 3, they're just asking point blank, is 407 a terminating decimal? The answer is either yes or no, and it is yes, because when you have the number 407, the decimal in a whole number is really at the end, and I could continue putting a trailing of zeros here, but I don't need to, so I would say that yes, it is terminating. It is a terminating decimal. I'm showing that with my right here. Number 4, a recipe for a 6-foot sub calls for 1 3/4 pounds of cheese. You want to get the exact amount from the deli counter. What decimal number should the digital scale show? We should try to do this one without a calculator, but again, you probably know that 3/4 is equivalent to 1 75/100, so that's all the answer would be. We talked about this before, that don't get too hasty and forget to put the whole number 1 there. You don't want to just write an answer of 75/100. 3/4, though, again, you could rewrite that as a division problem. 3 divided by 4, you set this up, 4 goes into 30, 7 times, we get 28. 30 minus 28 is going to give us 2. Bring down our 0. 4 goes into 25 times, and we would end up canceling that out to 0. For number 5, here's one talking about the 7/8. Again, if you know that 1/8 is equal to 125 thousandths, then 7/8 is 125 thousandths away from 1 whole. So that's just me doing a lot of talking here. If I was to do this, I would have 7 divided by 8, and 8 goes into 70 8 times. 70 minus 64 will give me 6. Bring my 0 down. 8 times 60 would be 7. 56 gives me 4. 0 again. 8 goes into 45 times. So if you notice, 1 minus 875/100, this is just a little side note. This isn't anything you would do on this problem. That does equal 125 thousandths because 7/8 is 1/8 away from 8/8. So you're taking away 125 thousandths. So my answer is 3 875 thousandths. So for number 6, go ahead and pair up which fraction is equivalent to the decimal. Okay, so by process of elimination, 7 1/8, 7 1/2, 7 3/5 are pretty simple to figure those out. So 7 28/100 really comes down to, is it 7 12 25ths or is it 7 21 75ths? And what I'm trying to show here is that if I take 12 25ths and I try to get it to where I have a 100 in the denominator, so that I now have it, I can read this as 48/100. 48/100 is obviously not equal to 28/100, so by process of elimination, this answer is 7 21 75ths. You could also break 28 up into 4 equal parts there, so that you have 28/100. I could divide this by 4, or excuse me, divide by 7. I've already lost my tangent here. I can just see that it's 3/4 of 28 is what I'm trying to figure out because I've got the 75/100. So 3/4 of 28. If I take and do 78 divided by 4, that's 7. And then 3 times 7 will give me 21. So that's one way that I could figure that out. How I knew they were doing 3/4 was because we had a 75 in the denominator. But again, if you had a calculator, you could have also just taken and done 21 divided by 75 to see that it equals 28/100. Okay, so number 7 says, what is the decimal equivalent of 8 1/5? So again, you're just going to be going 1 divided by 5. So I have to make sure I have my decimals here. 10 divided by 5 is 2, and that will end up being 0. So my answer will be 8 2/10. Number 8 says, why isn't 4 and then 670, I'm not really in the mind reading that. Hold on one second. 6,710,000, 10 millions. Whew. Why is that not a terminating decimal? Because it's not just saying with the zeros repeating, the block of digits, the 10,000 block, is what's actually repeating. That block of numbers repeats. Not just the zeros. Okay, thanks for watching. We'll go over this assignment tomorrow in class. Have a great night.